Well, when I first looked at this, I've obviously made I've got my notes here again today, because obviously I looked back at this on the 11th of January, so it feels like a long time ago now. But we're on the 11th week of the year, doing this again now, which is nice, and I like the number 11 as well, so that's always good. But this was where I suddenly thought, wow, who on earth has written this? Because obviously we know Helen channeled the Christ Jesus, Christ consciousness. But it was here where I suddenly started going, how precise are these directions that's being used here, and how interesting is it written, really?
Yes.
It becomes, and it has been interesting through the first 10 lessons of the workbook, of course, but for some reason this one was where I went, oh, okay, this is very, very interesting. We're talking about a correction process, and the teacher is giving us very, very precise directions on how to do undo this previous thinking to get to correct thinking. So first of all, 10 days, and now we're at the beginning of the correction process. So we've kind of been introduced to concepts in the first 10 days, really. But actually now this is an active step in correcting in lesson 11, which is very interesting. That stood out to me. I did say I'm starting to get clear that I've possibly, or have been, seeing the world completely wrong before.
Of course.
Because we've gone through seeing all of that kind of thing. I've had an experience now of a present moment, a holy instant. I haven't had many of those through my whole life, so if that's the correct way of seeing it, then I've definitely missed out on a lot of those, probably. And of course the concepts, you taught me these concepts when I was very young, but the world really being projected from within me, that all of the meaning is coming out of me. My perception is all here, not out there, obviously. So that's where the inside out experience gets interesting. And of course the course within 10 days have kind of got me to a place where I don't really just believe it. I know this is the case. I now know this is the case. There's another way of seeing, or I have been seeing a certain way. So I talked about the preciseness of the directions. For maximum benefit, move your eyes fairly rapidly, because you don't want them to linger on anything in particular. But while your eyes are rapidly moving, make sure you're saying the words leisurely, unhurried.
Yes, casually.
And this for me stood out because a few things, actually. It made me think, I think I've said this before, actually, it made me think of the process of patting your head and rubbing your tummy. Where you've got to, you're using your I don't know what you'd say, using your brain, I suppose, to activate different patterns in your body. So this is an active process, and you're really having to concentrate on actively doing two separate things. Which so some people find really easy, and they do pat their head, rub their tummy, and kids do it in school, don't they? And they get taught, this is doing two separate things, thinking about doing two separate things, and you have to concentrate on doing those two separate things to get it right. Otherwise your hand starts, the two hands start doing the same thing. So this is kind of akin to that, concentrating on making sure that you're moving your eyes rapidly, but speaking very slowly and unhurried. So there's that.
I just wanted it to be disturbing to you.
No, well,
because it is disturbing when you discover
that you've been seeing wrong the whole time.
Completely the wrong way around all your life.
Well, I have to say, I can't say that I've been as disturbed maybe as
No.
I could have been.
You've been brought up with.
But that's thankfully that's because you've kind of been around here, and I've seen everyone that's experienced this in a peaceful waking up. You know, a gentle awakening. We put it before, rather than a kind of shocking. Oh my gosh, what have I done this whole time? One
of the things the ego doesn't like is to be told it's wrong, you see.
Of course,
So when we discover that we have done something wrong, it's best to do it in a very gentle and kind way, isn't it? Well, you're wrong, you know.
Yes, of course.
Don't worry about it. You know, be quite casual about it.
Well, in fact, yes, I've had lots of I have lots of fun conversations with my friends actually, and I've developed a very and people and all sorts of people I work with, or kind of people wider. But I've developed a gentle questioning of things anyway, for my own sake more than anything. But also, you know, when I encounter, especially being a filmmaker and someone who interviews a lot of people, you know, people might have certain ways of seeing that are very this is right. I'm right. And here I am, determined to display my rightness. And then you have to kind of go, oh, well, this person's very confident in their perception. I'll just gently put a few questions in and just see if we can relax. Relax and come to a place of questioning, really, isn't it?
It does.
It's a nice place to be in when you start going, oh, I haven't thought about that before, or I haven't seen it like that before, but that's very interesting. So it comes to a gentle place of questioning, and a gentle place of going, oh, that's a nice way to look at it, actually. I haven't seen it that way before. So the other thing I do, obviously, in my spare time is I've been doing Tai Chi, Qigong for a little while now. And in that practice, it's obviously based on quite a spiritual practice and very mindful, coming from a kind of Zen origin as well, I suppose, a lot of this stuff. And in the practice, it talks about soft gaze. And a lot of these spiritual practices, I realize, are really kind of directing you towards a soft gaze or a lack of focus, and really bringing in your focus close to you and softening the world around you, just so you're really within yourself. But and this is often associated with a very peaceful state. However, this perhaps isn't a soft gaze. This is an active move your eyes rapidly from one thing to another. That's almost kind of the so you're it started to feel for me that it's quite a different practice in that it's breaking the illusion rather than softening it. So some practices are just softening it and coming to a mindful place very close to you, whereas this one's like, look at things quickly and around the place, but be still while you do it. So there's a funny kind of visual contradiction that's more about separating or breaking the spell than it is softening the spell, which I thought was quite interesting.
Good point.
It does even say that you might even, does it say something about uneasiness? If there's if there's little to no uneasiness, you can go ahead and do a bit more.
Yes.
You know, so it's actually acknowledging the fact this could be a bit uneasy for you. This is because this is an active correction process. You know, this is the beginning of a correction process. So it's an active process that you're doing, and that you're now actively trying to break the illusion, or break, you know, or whatever, or correct your vision, correct your seeing, that it could be a bit uneasy for you. So the teacher acknowledges this again in a gentle way. Anyway, I after all of that, and and the fact that even the teacher at the end here says more than this is not recommended. This is amazing, because it makes me think that it makes me consider just how much thought or how much theory or experimentation or care, because when you think about when you recommend something, often you recommend it because you've had enough experience of the thing that you can go, well, I can recommend doing that now.
Yeah.
So even this makes me remind me how experienced the teacher that's coming through is here, because he's obviously done this with many people,
and he's done it himself.
He's done so. We can already go. He's done it himself. We can possibly consider he's done it for all the disciples. A lot of people, yes. He's done it for all the disciples, and then of course, the strange nature of time. The course was written, but how many people had he helped prior to the writing, or during the writing, or past the writing, or all of this? So there's he's obviously built up, or the teacher has built up enough understanding to go, this is what's recommended for the student.
He will have learnt through teaching.
Yes.
And of course, brings that in the teacher's manual later on, and tells you, to teach is to learn.
Yes.
So in his teaching, he's learnt a lot about it for himself and for his students.
For his students, yes. So that's I got a lot from that lesson, and got quite excited. I got quite excited by the fact that I'm now partaking in an active curriculum.
Yes.
That's the workbook. To see a different world, really.
Yeah.
And the fact that there is an active curriculum to see a different world is pretty impressive, actually.
It is. I think part of it, then another part of it, is it wants you to include everything.
Yes.
And that's something we don't generally do because of separation. We're inclined to separate things out and give different meanings to different things. And that's the general practice, to study and analyze. But it wants us not to study and analyze. It wants it to be a synthesis of practice.
Yes, yeah.
Where nothing's left out and everything's including this, because this is a principle for the whole world, not just a few things.
Yes, this comes all the way through what we've been doing already and talking about. This comes to what I understand as the overview effect. So the overview effect is quite an interesting way of seeing, and it's said that astronauts that go up in rockets and go up to as high as they can go to look back at the planet, they experience something called the overview effect, and it's suddenly, to them, they're so high up that they look down on this world and they can't help but see the interconnected nature of the whole planet. They see it as one giant living entity, all interconnected. So they come back with this amazing sense of overview, where they've gone, there is no borders anymore. There is no, everything. No. You don't understand how small everything looks and how everything is just interconnected in the way that it works on the bigger picture. So you get this, they have this experience called the overview effect, which is probably quite a metanoia or a spiritual experience to have when you're that high up. And of course you can have people who astral travel and come out of the body and have overview effect by seeing the big picture. But really the overview effect that the course is leading you to is the interconnected nature of the whole mental experience.
Yes. Yes, it's very true. That's very good. Yeah.